I'm never satisfied with doing the same thing over and over. I want to make sure we're doing the best work we possibly can. And these Texas Panhandle people are so passionate about sports, they deserve it. And that's a true statement. They deserve it.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Lunner. Today, we are a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. So happy you're along. We always say this, but when we're out in the public, I love people making suggestions on who you would like to have on. And this Jimmy Lackey, who is my co-host, and the man, the CEO, Prez. How many titles do you have at Kids Inc. now?
I told you, I'm the chief toilet cleaner. That's what I do. Chief toilet cleaner.
That's sometimes that's the most relaxing job, though.
It's very important when needed.
Exactly. A clean restroom.
Yep.
That's why Buc-ee's is so famous.
No joke.
Those bathrooms are amazing.
No joke.
And that's weird to talk about on a podcast.
But our Toot and Totem bathrooms are clean here, too.
They are very clean.
They
do a great job. They do a great job. But Buc-ee's is legendary. But anyway, that's why we got our guest today. We've had a lot of people ask Jimmy and I for see if we can get Kale Steed in here. Kale Steed is the founder of Press Pass Sports. It's the go-to website in the Texas Panhandle and beyond, really, of high school, West Texas, the Sod Poodles, the Wranglers, whatever's going on in the Texas Panhandle. Kale Steed has tapped into it. Nobody knows more coaches, more players, or behind-the-scenes stuff. If Kale could give you what he knows off the record, 80% of that would blow you away, okay? I'm just telling you. The 20% he can write and report in big situations, that's what makes him so good.
He probably doesn't know this. But, Lance, you and I are old.
Yeah, we are. I mean, look at my hair.
I remember Kale's first on-air sportscast.
Oh, man.
At Channel 7.
Oh, it was brutal.
I remember the first one.
We want to officially welcome you in, though. Thanks for being on, Kale. We really appreciate this.
Man, Lance, I tell you what Lance does, Jimmy, even on the radio show, he makes you, like, on paper, a lot better than you are.
No,
I appreciate it.
You know what gives it away on this one, though? We got 3 cameras, so you're screwed.
You are. Yeah, you got to see the face on this, and I hope I don't break Maddie's camera. Yeah. By the way, I got to say, so I've been doing a podcast for 8 years with Craig Speary, Press Pass Podcast, and when we started it, we always wanted to, I envisioned video, and we don't do video. We're on, everything else, but what you guys have going here, man, I'm just looking at it, the cameras, the lights, the background, this studio, unbelievable, boys. I mean, I am impressed. Yes,
we
Maddie,
bow down to Matt. We bow down. We do.
Whatever Maddie said, that's what I did.
She's so good at what she does. And trust me, Kel, if you've ever seen her commercials or whatever, she could be back here, and this place, this thing would go to the top.
Well,
crazy.
She's prettier than all three of us.
For sure. There's no doubt about that. But
anyway,
we want to thank Maddie publicly, okay? So you can give a yell to the
yes.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. There it is. That was that voice.
But thanks for having me on
it's
today.
so impressive.
It's an honor. I'm Jimmy, I don't know how much, I have so much respect for you. Always have.
Well,
since day one. I coached Kids Inc. to a soccer team to an 0-8 record in 2011.
One of his greatest enjoyable times, though.
It was fun, man. I learned a lot.
I went out and watched one of his games.
Yeah, we had a great time. I even shot video one day while I was coaching. That was a lot of fun. And then, Lance, a mentorship that you and I have. You've done a lot for me in my career. So thank you today for having me. And Jimmy, that first sportscast, whew, man.
Do you remember it, Kale?
I remember my first time on air really well.
So you nervous? Or you?
Oh, shaking. I blacked out probably, so I can't really remember it like Jimmy probably could. But yeah, the pale face, drip of sweat, don't mess words up, don't cuss, right? So, but no, it was, and now you look at it 15 years later, 14 years later, and it's just another day now being on air,
Yeah.
So I used to do the morning show at Channel 7 when I ran the alumni office, first Thursday of every month, standing spot. And Charlie Patterson, if you remember Charlie, he was cameraman at Channel 7 for years and years and years and years and years.
Who interviewed you?
Well, that's where I'm going.
Oh, okay.
So Charlie was getting ready to retire, and he brought out these scrapbooks. And he and I had made friends because I'd been doing this for a long time on their show. And he came in, he said, I want you to come over and look at this. And so we started going. and he showed me all the morning show hosts that had been on during the time that he'd been there. And so we started. He goes, "Now, when did you start doing this?" And so we found out. I said, "Here's who I started with," and that 23 morning reporters I went through during the time I did the morning show.
23?
23.
How many years?
How many years was that? Yeah.
7.
Golly. 23.
I mean,
well, you're not surprised by
I mean,
that.
I can remember a lot of them. Tim Gutierrez, Shereen Cheney. I mean,
and you're throwing some names out.
Yeah,
there,
I mean,
man.
you know, but that's where they all got their start, same as you, and then you move on. And
right.
You know,
I love Channel 7. Channel 7 is
the morning show was fun.
Oh, morning show is always that's what it's supposed to be. You know, 6 and 10 are that hard hitting, bleed it leads, but 10 the morning show is that fluffy. Yeah. Let's have interviews and fun, man. And Channel 7 is always going to hold a place in my heart because I grew up watching it because Baker, you know, refuses to go away.
Golly.
But no, I'm kidding.
No,
because of Baker, you watch Bake, and it just provided a lot of stability.
Yeah,
and then they gave me an opportunity of being on air. I wasn't on air before Channel 7, so that holds a dear place.
But Kale also, just so you know, Jimmy, he's a very deft photographer.
Oh, I know.
In Lubbock.
He's good with a video camera.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. I mean, you ought to see him dial in, focus in on it. It's amazing. And then he can edit like crazy. But tell us about that, Kale. All right, you grow up. You're a sports guy. You know, Pampa Canadian. We talk a lot about that. And why did you choose, maybe the media area when you probably could have coached? Your mom was a teacher, right. So my mom was a teacher, my dad as well. That's in your DNA, man. There's something about when your parent's a teacher.
I never knew anything else.
Yeah.
Sports it's like all of us that are sports nerds. You grow up with I remember my mom said, Grandpa put a tractor in front of me, and I passed that aside to put a ball in my hand. So I mean, nice. Like anybody, you just grow up loving a passion for sports, and then you just you go on from there. When I was 10 years old at a talent show, I think I was Harry Carey.
Yeah,
as a sports broadcaster.
Nice.
So you grow up watching it, and then you realize at a certain age that you're not going to play first base for the Chicago Cubs. Right?
Exactly.
I'm not going to be that
for
guy.
The Cardinals.
Right? Yeah. Jimmy, who are you?
I was going to be the quarterback for the Cowboys.
Exactly.
You said that. Wait.
Was.
You said that awfully quiet.
Mine went away early. Man, I got my
Mine too.
I got my eye put out when I was 10 years old. And I mean, a lot of things. I loved baseball.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand the batter's box anymore. I don't have any depth perception.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, man, you throw the ball at me, you throw a set of keys at me, I'm going to move out of the way.
So when that dream of being the first baseman for the Cubs went out the window at about 12, I figured, okay, well, I love sports. I've always loved media. ESPN back then was so great. Craig Kilborn, Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick. I was like, man, I want to do. I just took a drawing and loving media immediately, and then I came and shadowed Dennis De La Pena one day.
Oh wow!
In high school,
yeah,
as a junior
He's
in high
in
school.
Austin now. Yeah,
love Dennis. Yeah, and I was like, this is what I want to do, and and then you get 18, 19, and then that kind of you don't know what to do. And then at the age of 20, 21, I walked. It's a great story. You guys will love this. I walk into Channel 7, unknown. Just it was about 1st of August, and I go, "May I see Lee Baker?" 20-year-old cocky kid. Can I see Lee Baker? Lee comes in. What do you want? Straight what he said to me. What do you want?
Yeah, that's Lee.
And I said, I just want to get a chance to do some football. Anything I can do to help. Come in on Friday. You're going to call scores. That's your job. I was the call sheet guy, right? I get a list of numbers, and Allsup's and Toya, a sheriff's office and Floyd Data, right?
Yeah.
And you're just calling scores.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah, and
gold for scores.
Yeah, and by about 4 weeks in, he finally let me start going with Paul Tubbs, the weekend guy, and shadowing. And I finally started shooting video, and that's kind of how it got going.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So Paul, we're talking people that I know.
Oh yeah, I knew
Paul's granddad coached in Dumas. Coached at Emerald High.
Yeah.
Burl Bartlett.
Yeah, big time at Emerald High.
Big time coach.
Yeah. And, that's cool. It's a small
awesome.
world. So,
it is.
That is a fun story, though, Kale, with phone calls because.
I called the Toya. I remember calling Toya's Allsup's, and she's like, Allsup's. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm on Channel 7. I'm looking for the Toya, the Toya Demet score. She goes, hold on. Hey, Chuck. Were you at the game? Yeah. What was the score? 27-21. Thank you. That's how I got the score.
Yeah, no. Whatever it took, we had to do that at the newspaper too. You know
what
what
was
I mean?
it you told me you started out doing?
Now I was the agate clerk.
Agate clerk.
And that's the little print. This is old school.
No way.
In the on this called the scoreboard page. So I was only the agate clerk. Now Garrett Von Netzer did let me cover high school volleyball as well, but I had to do that for a whole year. And I was, you know, I had to have 2 jobs. I worked at a gas station from 6 a.m. But I'm going to tell you real quick before we get to Kale, is that I had to take off for a month to make some money with a buddy of mine in Colorado do landscaping. And I almost didn't come back. That's how close life changes. You know what I mean? Like they called me and said, "You coming back?" And I had to hesitate.
We need to get Maddie to meet Garrett because Maddie's from Fredericksburg.
Yeah,
you know,
Oh,
he
still lives there. She's a battling Billy.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
She needs to meet him. He's a great guy. I still talk to Garrett.
He has a farm out there. I think he raises.
What a great town.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
I got a picture of him holding one of his goats.
Yeah. Garrett. I mean, Garrett saved my life, you know, as far as like media wise. So, but yeah, that whole first year, I can relate to that. But we had to call places like that just to get scores.
Obscure places.
Kale, so you go from there after the Channel 7 experience, but you end up in Lubbock. Tell us how that happened.
You know, I had a brief stint here at Channel 10, and then it was very brief.
Okay.
And then from there, I got a job in Lubbock at KCBD as a video. They call them photographers, which always drove me crazy because we shoot video.
Yeah.
I always say videographer. Just drove me
He
nuts.
respects photographers enough to give
Right.
them
Yeah,
their
and
own
plus
title.
photographers are their own people. They shoot photos. We shot video. So when I was here, I'm a photog. I'm like, I don't. It's that term, but you know, and it changed my life though being there because the people you worked under. I mean, there was Karen and Abner, the two Karen McKay and Abner Uresti, the longest running news team in the state of Texas, maybe in the country. I think they're going on 40 years now.
They're still going.
They're still going today.
In Lubbock?
Yeah, in Lubbock. Yeah, wow. KCBD. They've been together. You can't say Karen without Abner. You can't say Abner without Karen. And those two were awesome people. And then you started learning under Emily Jones was there. Emily Jones was about the first person I ever shot a football game for in Lubbock. Yeah. And, you know, we now know EJ's story and how successful she is. She
Rangers,
was awesome.
on-field, award-winning.
Plainview, one of the Plainview girl.
Yeah.
You know,
great story, yeah.
Pete Christie came in and learned a lot. And then they just brought in a lot of, you know, and then I just, being a news photographer, videographer, excuse me, I did it myself. Being a news videographer, shot a lot of boring stuff, you know, city stuff. But then I went on the overnights, you know, where I was getting like just a lot of spot news, which is, you know, you're following car wrecks, you're following car chases. And you know, that was a lot of adrenaline stuff. But again, it's not my cup of tea. I don't like being happy when you pull up to a scene and you want that person to be gone because that's not how that's what news is, right?
Oh yeah,
but
totally.
Luckily, you know, I built a rapport with the sports guys in Lubbock and just started learning and just how can I learn to be on air? And it took, you know, years. I never thought I would do it. I thought I'd always just be a videographer. I was fortunate in Lubbock to be able to hook into being able to cover Tech games, football, baseball, basketball, go to travel for Tech games, go to bowl games. I was fortunate in that way, go to a Cowboys game here and there. So that's where I kind of broke in there. And then, so that was my, it was a, you know, covering that 07, 08 years, the Crabtree years, the Leach years where they were on top was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, and he makes light of it, but I don't know if he can tell the story, but he had Bob Knight was down there. He covered Marcia Sharp. I mean, he was heavily involved with the Lady Buffs. I mean, we're talking on the plane rides. Everything. Yeah,
I traveled with the Lady Raiders one year as their videographer for the
Lady Raiders.
For the Christy Curry coaches show.
Yeah,
and that was fun. You know, it is still at the same time. And Jimmy said this earlier. He's honest, and you know, I made a lot of mistakes in that time. You know, very immature.
Yeah. That
I really regret about some things that, you know, that I don't want people to remember me in what. And some people will remember me in a certain light, but you know, but it's still always learning.
Yeah, I know. You're always learning.
Let me give you my humility story.
Oh, if you want to.
This is true. People that know me know I probably had a bad temper once upon a time. I used to play a lot of City League flag football, City League softball, and stuff like that when I was younger. And I told Kim, the day we get married, I will never play any of this again. Because
why was that?
Because too many of my friends that did end up in divorce.
Yeah, I agree.
Know, they lived that life, and that wasn't what I was going to do, but it was just something that I did. So this is a true story. I took this job had been here about 3 or 4 years. We got moved into this building, so brand new building that we're in, and a guy named Leroy Nunez. And Leroy, if you're out there, you're going to remember this story. Leroy used to coach for us, and he umpired a lot of softball for us. And he and I were talking out in the foyer, and good friends. We got to be real good friends through the years. And he said, "Jimmy, can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I got to be honest." He goes, "How long have you been here now?" I said, 3 or 4 years. He said, "I was stunned when you got this job." I said, "Really?" And then it clicked. He goes, "Do you remember playing flag football in City League?" I go, "Yeah, I do." And I hauled off and threw a football at Leroy as hard as I could, and it zipped right past his head.
Was he the official?
Yeah, he was the official.
Oh, no.
And Sandy Lance was the head of Parks and Rec
Oh,
at
wow,
City,
yeah.
and I was in Sandy's office
You got
next
booted
day.
out?
Oh, no, I was in Sandy's office next day, and I got all but hung at the courthouse square by Sandy, and rightfully so. But he goes, "I've watched you do this job," and he goes, "You aren't that same guy." And I go, "No, Leroy." And I mean, I had tears in my eyes. I said, "I got to apologize to you." I said, I have a horrible temper back then, and I said, "I've tried to tame that, and I think that rattlesnake in me is pretty much gone." But
That's awesome.
right when he said it,
Yeah.
so I know what you're talking about.
Mine was more fighting demons of vices.
Yeah.
And, I still fight today. But I get where you're coming from. You do humiliating things that you don't think you could come back from.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of those things, especially back then. So but I was able, you're able to rebound.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting on the marriage thing. I saw a lot of bad marriages, not calling anything out at the newspaper. Like, you're married? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking inside, like, what kind of marriage is that? So that's my excuse why I waited till I was 65 to get married. You know
yeah,
what I
man,
mean?
they
But-
talk about waiting. You waited. You
I did wait.
I
I
got
wait.
that question about you more than ever. I mean, it doesn't matter. Lance Lawnert, sports guy, Lance Lawnert does. No, the question everybody, is he married? No.
2 of my friends,
Yeah.
Lance and Bill Bandy,
Yeah.
both got married in their 60s.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
How about that?
Wow.
That's
First
great.
time.
So,
First time for both.
I
Yeah.
got that.
Let's take a break. Let's take a quick break.
let's take a break. We're going to ask Kale, can you tell your Bob Knight story or not?
Sure.
The micro-
I'll leave the language out.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Leave the language out. We all know he's a cuss like a sailor, even though, I got called by his son, Kale. I wrote a column saying,
Yeah.
but like he cusses like a sailor, but and his son calls me and says, "How can you write that about my dad?" I'm like, it's a fact. It's a fact. But anyway, we'll be back. We got a lot more with Kale Steed. Great stories there. I love that. So I'm glad you don't have the timber you did. You're a big dude.
That was bad.
Huh?
It was bad.
Yeah. We've all had those moments. So, hey, we'll be back. This is the Fieldhouse Podcast. We got Kale Steed. I know you're going to want to hear some more stories about his trials and trails. Plus, we want him to break down a little bit of 2024, kind of his top 3 storylines, if you don't mind, with the high school football season starting up. So stick with us. We'll be back.
Let me guess, your kids want to play sports and you want to find them a great team to be on? Well then come on, Kids Inc. is registering for fall sports right now. Woohoo! But seriously, we've got tackle and flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, outdoor soccer. That's a lot of options. Check out our new website to register your kids to play, learn, and grow this fall season at Kids Inc. That's www.kidsinc.org.
Hey, let's welcome back into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We got Kale Steed today. We are a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. Jimmy Lackey here, Lance Lawnert. We're having a great conversation with Kale Steed. He is the founder of Press Pass Sports, worked at the Amarillo Globe News, award-winning writer, 4-time Lone Star Conference Writer of the Year, Texas High School Sports Writer of the Year. That's the Putt Pal Award. You can go on to the Girls Coaches Association awards, just numerous.
You're forgetting the 2-6A Region 1 soccer writer of the year.
Yeah,
I
they're your
got that.
soccer writer of the year. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
always cracks me up because I
Which
didn't.
around here, those people appreciate
Yeah,
that.
they do.
They
yeah.
do.
You know
they
what?
do.
They
The
appreciate
only
it.
time I've ever disagreed, well, we're not even going to bring that up.
Okay.
One time somebody got an award that didn't even cover high school.
That's what I was.
And I was like,
yeah.
come on, we do all the work here, and you're giving it to the boss? Come on, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kale's well deserving of everything. But Kale, we kind of left you in Lubbock,
Yes.
but you also covered Mike Leach,
Did.
Bob Knight,
Yes.
some legendaries in the coaching world.
Yeah.
Tell us about the late, great Mike Leach.
Oh, he's fantastic.
You saw so many interviews with him.
Oh, I loved him. He'd always come in. First thing, he'd come in, he'd pick his ear lint, and he'd flick it and questions. And I remember the Moody being, you could just tell that you've been in there. The Moody being is how the press conference was going to get set. And he would come in and, somebody asked him, what are you trying to establish early? Go down the field and score. And then,
It was on. Huh?
Oh, yeah, it was on. He was very unique. One day he was 30 minutes late to a presser. We had a noon presser every Monday, and he was late because he fell off his daughter's bike and broke his elbow. And he had a cast on. Just things like that. And then with Bobby Knight, man, obviously, legend in the college basketball world. I didn't have the greatest experience with Bobby Knight, so I'm going to tell this. You want me to go ahead and get this?
Yeah. Tell the story. This is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Herb McGee, who was a Division II coach at Philadelphia University, broke the Division II record for wins. So a TV station out of Alabama calls KCBD and wanted an interview with Bobby Knight because Herb McGee attributed a lot of these wins to a defensive pamphlet that Bobby Knight wrote. So they sent me down to the Spirit Arena to meet, what was his PR guy's name, Randy Farley?
Fairley.
Randy Fairley in the basement of the Spirit Arena. And I waited about an hour. Bobby's coming, he's coming. He walks in.
So he waits an hour.
Wait an hour. And I got my camera ready. I got 2 questions they wanted me to ask. And he walks in and goes, "You ready?" "Yep, I'm ready." He goes, "Are you going to ask me the questions?" And I'm leaving out a lot of language here. Okay, are you gonna ask me the questions, or am I just going to talk? And before I get a word out, it's just I'm just going to talk. You just push. You know how to push record? You push record. And I'm gonna talk about Herb. Okay, you recording? Explicit. I'm recording. Hit record. He puts a smile on his face. He's got a smile on his face. "Herb, I don't know why you're giving me all this credit. Blah blah blah." Turn it. He's done. The growl comes back. "Are we done?" And he just takes my microphone and he just throws it on the ground and breaks it.
Breaks it. So, Kale, tell the story going back to the office, how you have to explain it.
Oh, yeah, I have to go back and tell my
mic.
engineer that Bobby Knight broke my microphone, which he doesn't believe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I going to explain this broken, because he shattered the end of the handle. He shattered it, and on the inside. Now I got to go back to John Ernst, who looks like Al Borland on steroids. And I got to tell this guy that, this microphone's broken, and he hated when videographers or reporters broke equipment. So telling him was just like telling your dad, that you did something wrong, right?
Yeah.
So you had to go in there.
The car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had to go tell him Bobby Knight broke it. Sure he did. So I got, of course, took the heat.
Yeah. Knight was a unique guy, obviously, but
Well, you were in there the day he grabbed that girl photographer and put her on his knee.
I mean, yeah.
Just started doing that interview.
He has no filter,
I mean, think about the incident at the United.
Oh, at the United with David
Street.
Smith. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where he slapped the salad out of his hand. Or when his own TV guy, who did his own TV show, David Collier, asked him if Michael Crabtree should be a Heisman winner. And he told David that he's stupid for asking him that. His own guy that hosted his own show.
Yeah.
So to give him a little credit, I'm gonna tell you a real quick story.
Yeah. I don't want to step on it.
Bob and I got hired. They had a big golf tournament out at La Pluma. It was Tech golf tournament.
I was there. Yeah.
Okay, so we go, and I'm not, I'm playing, but it's, we're just out there for fun. And so they've got him up on stage, and I'm blind in this eye, so I'm standing, and I look to my right. Leach is standing right next to me. One of my very best friends from home, Mark Gillespie.
Oh, yeah.
Coached, Mark.
I know Mark.
Coached with Leach at Iowa Wesleyan College. Hal Mummy was the head football coach. So Mark coached with Mike and could tell you all kinds of stories about Leach. But anyway, I had something I could say. I said, "Hey, I got a buddy of mine that knows you." He said, "Oh, yeah, Mark." He goes, "Mark's a great guy." And so that, gave us a chance to talk. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He goes, "Sure." This gentleman that we knew had this company called Stadium Chair Company, and you've seen them, all those stadium seats that people carry have all the logos on them. Well, Jimmy was going to go out of business, and he was going to get into another market of business type. So he offered all of his existing stock to Kids Inc. if we would come to Midland and pick them up. Well, there was probably 90 Texas Tech stadium seats and probably another 3 to 4 dozen nice fold-out Texas Tech chairs with wooden arms. They gave these to us. And I asked Coach Leach, I said, "Would you autograph these for us?" as a fundraiser? And he goes, absolutely.
All of them?
I said, we'll bring them to Lubbock and we can leave them with you. And he goes, absolutely. And he goes, I'll get Coach Knight to sign them too. And they both signed all of those chairs for us. We made a fortune selling those seats to Tech alums.
Wow.
But they didn't have to do that. I mean, they didn't even know us.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will tell you, and Craig backed our trailer right down into Jones Stadium where the locker room was for the football team. We unloaded those boxes, and we went back a week later and picked them up, and every one of them were signed.
And again,
I never met him, never met Coach Knight.
Right.
But he did that for us.
And I'm sure, he, and I hate to trample on somebody that's passed away.
No,
and I'm not
I
trying
agree.
to with that story. It's just, it was caught me off.
No, this isn't a Bob Knight. I mean,
but that's a great story for you. I mean, he's legendary.
That's what my dad said. Because I was trying to complain. My dad's like, you got a Bobby Knight story out of it.
My friend passed his all-time winning record.
Oh, wow.
Don Meyer.
Don Meyer. That's right. And I remember when you brought Don Meyer to town and we did that story with him. That was a great story.
Coach Meyer passed when Coach Knight was the all-time leading winner. Our wins leader, Coach Meyer, passed him.
Knight was his own man, you know what I mean? Remember, he had the feud with the sports editor in Lubbock, and the guy would ask a question every press conference.
Is that Randy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would just look at him and go, next question. You know what I mean? Every time. But
next question.
You look at him, next question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I ran into him at Pampa. You know, they invited me up. Pampa, he was at a golf thing there. They invited me up. Hey, we got 20 minutes of the night. Told him you're going to come up from the Amarillo Globe News. So I walk in. I've got probably 50 questions ready, but I want to ask him something unique. Like his wife was coaching an all-star game for Oklahoma and Texas, Kale.
Right.
And so I go, hey, that's the first question. Trying to ease into it because he's had every question in the world asked him. Oh man, he goes, I'm not here to talk about my wife. And I knew I was in trouble.
You're in trouble right there.
There was 20 people listening to this interview,
no.
and I said, I am gone. I'm out of here. I just kind of, limped out of there. But anyway, so Lubbock, and then you came back to Amarillo. Why that?
Yeah, I was kind of in limbo at the time, and I was looking to get a change. So I contacted Jay Ritchie, who was still the news director at the time at Channel 7. And he's like, yeah, come on, you'll be a one-man band. You could come learn how to be a reporter. I'll teach you how to be a reporter and news reporter, and you'll come do that, and you'll shoot your own stuff. Oh, okay, I already know how to shoot, so that was good. So now it's about being a reporter, which I'm like, I didn't know how to TV write at the time, didn't know how to be on air, and at the time Jay was transitioning back to being an anchor, and Steve Perry was coming in as news director. Okay. Steve was excellent, and I'm a big Steve Perry guy to this day, and a Jay Ritchie guy, and I thank Jay Ritchie to this day for what he did for me. But man, I remember they put me on. I was covering prairie chicken, a story of the prairie chicken, the lesser prairie chicken, right? City stuff that I knew nothing about. I remember falling asleep in a city council meeting. I was just brutal at this, but there would be fun stuff to cover too, obviously news. But I remember they stuck me on air, and I was shaking.
Really?
Shaking the first time I was ever on air.
Wow.
And I was trying to read that prompter, and I had no training. At this. So but then I was at 7 at 09. And I went 2 years, and then Brian Wilkerson left. You remember Brian Wilkerson left, and Lee came in and offered me the weekend job. And I finally found my niche, man. Once I got into being a weekend sports guy, it was like finally, after about 8 years, I finally figured out what I wanted to do.
That's cool. That's cool, yeah.
Jay was my roommate when we used to do United Way campaigns.
Is that right?
We go to the retreat every summer. Jay was my room dog. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, and as a TV guy, I don't think there's ever been a better person I've watched or learn from than Jay Ritchie as just the voice.
Oh, the voice.
The way to present news and the way to write news. Jay Ritchie is just...
he comes in every year for us. We do our food bowl down at WT. We introduce all the kids on the big screen and stuff. He does the voiceover for us.
Oh, yeah. That's the best guy to have voiceover.
He comes in and does that for us every year.
The only thing about him is he loves Michigan. So you got to hold that.
We've all got a bias.
He's the big blue guy.
Big blue. Oh my gosh.
Him and I used to have some great combo. We were both Walking Dead fans, so every Monday we'd have like a whole powwow. Hey, did you watch last night's episode?
Yeah, he was at the Globe News for a while. We learned from him even then.
That was on AGTV.
Yeah, he had to learn how to write some news stories as well. But I mean, one thing about Jay, man, it was all in. It was all in every day with him. You know what I mean? That's what I told him.
And he was always. I'll tell you this: a lot of us get a lot of us in when we're working in an office environment get very toxic, get very negative. Jay was never like. Jay was always with a smile on his face. upbeat
Always
every
upbeat.
single day, and I try to take that. It's hard.
No, you
It's
do a
hard.
good job.
I don't know if
You
he's
do-
still doing it, but for a while he was being the courtesy car driver after he retired.
That's what I
for
heard,
Street Toyota.
Yeah.
He'd just go take people. I mean, can you imagine what a great Uber driver?
I know. You imagine walking in, he's like, "Hello, how are you?" You know, they got that voice. How are you?
Welcome
today?"
Golden
in.
tone
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. So Kale, and then you and I really got to know each other when
Right.
you
and
came-
I met at a couple of Tech games.
Right, yeah,
I went
for
up,
sure.
Jimmy, it's so funny. I went up to Lance. I'm like, "Hey, Lance, he doesn't know me from Adam." And I remember this. They were playing Kansas. I remember this, and I ran Lance down on the field because I've been a Lance Lannert guy since he's gonna hate this, since I was.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody used to read the predictions. Let's get real.
Oh, the predictions. So Friday and
for high school
Saturday.
football.
Friday and Saturdays were the best day ever in the Globe News. I'd get to Alexander's and Canadian at 6 a.m., pop that quarters in and pull that thing out. I would read it on my car before I even got home. And if you picked against the Wildcats, dude,
Ooh,
it was serious business.
it was.
Yeah, serious business. But I met Lance at a Tech game, and we've stayed in touch ever since. Worked with Lee at the Channel 7. And I was kind of noticing Lee wasn't going anywhere. So I wanted to – I've always been a guy, and you guys are the same way. I always wanted to grow in my opportunities and learn more. So I thought, why not? And they were starting AGN TV, so I thought, why not take what I've learned in TV and then try to go learn to be a writer? So Lance took a chance on me in 14. And, man, that's where I really grew, Jimmy. That's where I really learned who I finally was, being a journalist, learning how to write and tell stories, and then building relationships, which is my favorite thing. And it's because of being at the Globe News. That's where I really just you call getting in your zone, right? That's where I really honed in.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a clue where we met, but I do.
Where was that?
He covered, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, the best.
This is how you see it.
This is the best Division II football team WT ever had. This was in the '86 bunch,
Yeah.
Okay.
top to bottom.
I'm in there.
Top to bottom, and Lance covered them that year. And a lot of my good friends were on that team. They're younger than I am, but I worked in housing for a while, and a lot of them lived in my residence halls. But Lance covered them. They had a lot of respect for him, and
We were
it
able
was
to be
early,
out there.
and it was early in your time at the Globe
I was a
News,
kid.
too.
But real quick, we were able to go out there because of the 12 people we had on the staff.
Oh, yeah.
I was at every practice,
Wow.
like for an hour or
Couldn't
two
even
every
imagine
day.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he covered that bunch, and I mean, that bunch comes in fairly regularly, and we host them over at the house. They all come over at the house, but they all remember Lance, and I've had Lance over at the house when
Yeah,
they come
it's
into
been
town.
awesome.
That was a good bunch, but top to bottom, probably the best football team we've had since we went to the Division II level, and probably should have had a chance to win a national championship that year. Back then, the Lone Star Conference champion didn't have an automatic bid.
Oh, wow.
And so we won the conference, went 6-0 in the conference, but didn't get a bid.
Yeah.
And Kingsville ended up winning the national championship that year, and we beat them.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. But that's when we met.
Yeah, that's when you and I met.
I don't remember. that.
I was working in housing.
Yeah. I
good.
do remember him being in charge. But
Yeah.
Kale, speaking of the relationships you built, I mean, you're one guy who knows so many players, so many coaches. Like it'd be amazing. Like if we needed a guest in 5 minutes, okay, he would have a coach for us. You know what I mean? And we could pick 5 coaches, and one of those would be here. I promise you. He knows everybody at all time. How does that work? How do you keep that connection going?
Oh, it's now it's become just second nature. When I was learning the business, it comes down to, like Jimmy said a while ago, it's just about being who you are. And, he said this before we got on the air. It's just, he's an open book, and he's just himself. And that's what I've always tried to build myself on is, you see a lot of egos out there in this business, and you see a lot of people pretend to be, I have to be a certain. I'm a character because I'm on TV, right? You just be yourself and just be like, try to be likable. You want people to like you, but I think it's because we share a bond as a sports writer. You share a bond with a coach or a player because you like the same things. Plus, you once they realize too. The national media gives guys like us such a bad name because you see attacks. That's all you see now is, they're attacking. Lance, one thing you taught me is you never attack. There's once these people could trust you and realize that they don't have to be on guard with you, and they're your friend.
That's total.
They're your friend, and that's what you're trying to be. I'm not going out there and going, when are you getting, are you getting fired? Now you might text them that as a joke, right? But you're not you're not out there to get them. I'm not out there to to ruin their career. I'm just out here to promote local sports and make them better, especially the athletes. And I never want them to think that I'm going to put an athlete in a bad light. I would never put in fact, I've had athletes in interviews say something very kind of controversial that might be for their team, bulletin board material. So I'll ask their coach, hey, do you want this out there?
Yeah.
Give them the option.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Because instead of just throwing a kid under the bus.
My philosophy is always high school kids are off limits. It's not
Right.
a commentary. College, it's kind of on. Pro, it's a whole different world. It's on.
To me, the college kid is even.
I agree.
It's
the kid, not necessarily
Right.
the coach, but
Right.
and it's changed with social
The college
media.
coaches is a different level. They know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I made Hunter Hughes really mad. And
But what that?
I've made him mad a few times doing some selfish kind of things that I probably shouldn't have done, but I was doing my job.
Yeah.
But he didn't appreciate it, which I
That
understand.
is the toughest part when they get in trouble or
get fired,
get
fired,
fired,
yeah.
or something happens controversial, and you have to write that. But you're just doing your job. You know what I mean?
Most coaches, and y'all know this, there's two things going to happen to a coach. They're either going to retire or they're going to get fired.
Right.
Yeah.
That's usually one of the two endings.
That's another
Well,
thing.
coaches respect honesty and hard work, and Kale is such a hard worker that's one of the things you don't give yourself a lot of credit for. But I'm going to call him out right now. Is Kale works so hard that these coaches know, hey, this guy's out here doing his job. I'm gonna give him a call back on maybe where I wouldn't for another reporter.
Well, I'll take it to a different level from an outsider's perspective. We don't have a robust sports page in the Globe News anymore.
Wait.
No, it's
No,
the
robust- robust?
I'm just saying we don't have
No, I
access
mean
to
that's
local.
that's being kind.
We all grew up.
Robust.
We all grew up. Saturday morning newspaper.
Oh.
Last night's information is right there. I mean, right there.
Every game.
And I lived in Dumas, and I always wondered, how in the world do they get this paper printed and get it to my mom and dad's front porch?
Yes.
So I can read it on a Saturday morning and look up all the scores. I remember when Lance told me he was leaving the paper, they put a 10:30 deadline on them to have all their stuff in. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But the volume of work that they did to get all that information, and that was every day. You could have the biggest national championship football game on a Saturday night, and around here we're not going to get it in the newspaper till the earliest on a Monday.
Yeah.
And
You're lucky if you get
I'm
it in
pointing,
these
the time has changed, and so what do? You have to shift, and I've watched you guys shift into what's available to me to get that information out today, and y'all do a great job with that. And you have to use the tools that are available to you, and one of those isn't the old school newspaper that I grew up with. It's just not.
And that's the thing, Jimmy, is when I started Press Pass. Now let's go to the Press Pass portion.
Let's take a break.
Sorry.
And then we're going to talk about Kale's press pass, and then we'll get him some highlights he expects for 2024. Then we'll get him out of here. But I know you're enjoying this conversation. Jimmy and I are too. This is the Fieldhouse Podcast. Stick with us. We'll be back.
Ready to dive deep into the heart of sports? Then tune in, because that is exactly what we are here for at the Fieldhouse Podcast. But the Fieldhouse Podcast isn't just about us talking sports. It's about all of us, our community, our passions, and our love for the game. That's why we're reaching out to any and all local businesses who want to get in early on the action. Whether you're a restaurant looking to pack the house on game day, or a fitness center wanting to help our listeners take their game to the next level, we want to partner with you. By sponsoring the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're not just getting your brand out there, you're becoming a part of our sports family. Reach out to us today at fieldhouse@kidsinc.org. That's KIDSINC.org.
Welcome back into the Fieldhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Lunner. We got Jimmy Lack here, CEO and Prez of Kids Incorporated. And then we've got our special guest today, Kale Steed. We've been waiting for him for a long time to come in. A lot of you have requested this, and he hasn't disappointed. Kale, when the newspaper crushed, I mean, Jimmy was very kind when he said we don't have a robust newspaper. I can be a little more critical. I put 38 years of blood, sweat, and tears into that bad boy, and what I see of it now just makes me literally cry.
I was going to ask, can I ask you that?
Yeah.
You were there 38 years. I was there 6, but I think Jimmy and I feel like we're part of it for our whole lives. We feel like that because we all were the Globe News because we loved it. Does it hurt?
Kills me.
Angers. Not anger, but is it just what's the word I'm looking for? It breaks your heart, I guess.
My heart's broken with it, but more try not to be selfish for myself.
Right.
The citizens of Amarillo no longer have a watchdog of the community. And that's no disrespect to the TV stations, but their staffs, they're limited what they can do. They have advertisers they have to kiss, their fannies, okay? And they do that.
And they have 12 minutes to tell news.
Exactly. That's the bottom line. Kale just nailed it. And most of those are 2-minute segments.
Because there's 7 minutes of weather.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started on the weather, boys. Anyway, no. We have more weather than, I mean, God even invented weather. You know what I mean? But no, but we've lost the watchdog of our community. Simply by that, I mean, the city of Amarillo could spend ridiculous amounts of money on something ridiculous and get away with it very easily.
Nobody's
Where
there.
back in the day, whether we weren't perfect, but we were at least there at every board meeting, at every school board meeting, at every event, and so. And I'm talking about the nation itself. That's what you lose when you have a staff of one reporter and one sports reporter in a city of 220,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you lose is the watchdog. For me personally, yeah, that sports page, we took a lot of pride in that.
Oh,
man.
you could see it.
We tried to get every score in. that Saturday morning when you woke up in Dumas. That was a source of pride to get every story. And there were
Not
five.
Not only
Not
a score, Lance, you got a story on every single game.
And there would be like 5 coaches. You can relate to this.
Oh, yes.
Like 5 schools each year. We know they're not calling us. We got their numbers. We got an assistant coach to help out or whatever, but we took pride in that. But that's what breaks my heart about it. But in a good way, Press Pass Sports has stepped in.
No, real quick, I want one more question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Do they need to – here's what I want to ask you guys. This is for both of you. Since, the Globe News is what it is, because we're going to be honest here, do they need to change? Would you like to see them change the name of it? Because it's not what the Globe News.
Yeah, that'd be good.
represents.
Here's my solution to it, guys.
Okay.
I've got a simple one where they could revive that paper. Is their deadline's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Okay, so why not make it an afternoon paper? In this day and age, we're all so busy in the morning. Right. We all are on our social media. Yeah. So by the time you get that paper, you're going to know, but why not write a feature on those games? And so you're going to have a little bit of time in the afternoon or evening more than we now have in our
great
lunch
idea,
day.
actually. I never thought of
So
that.
if that paper came to your at your house at 4 o'clock rather than 6 in the morning,
like the Amarillo Globe Times did.
it would totally be an Amarillo Globe Times.
We used to have 2 papers a day.
Yeah,
I know,
that was a
unbelievable.
pain to rewrite those stories.
But Jimmy, what you got anything
Go
to
ahead.
say? You?
No, I just,
yeah.
Here's the thing: is it's so
It's right
fast
there.
to get it right here.
It's right
No,
there.
I know.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And
And they're not even good on
it's
that.
going to be
But
hard.
you still can't get the Borger Pampa detailed story out there. You can get a
No.
score, but if you came back in the
I
afternoon,
get what you're saying. I just don't. I don't know if you can go back.
yeah.
We all miss this, right? We all miss
I do.
holding this,
I like
especially if
reading
you're
a
40
newspaper.
and over. Really,
You'd
especially.
have to tweak it, but I think it would work. I think you
There's
could
a
make
way to make
something
it work.
viable where you could still play a crossword or do whatever. You know what I mean? Old school. We'll see about that. But Kale, you decided, okay, Press Pass Sports.
Mm-hmm.
How did that originate and why?
I was sitting. I left the Globe News not near as eloquently as you did. I just left.
no.
I just took off.
You were down to 2 guys,
Yes,
you
me
and Lee
Lee,
Passmore.
yeah. And they were on me.
Kale, we were used to.
And
know
they
what I
were-
mean? Kale was used to
I remember.
They were on us constly about
Yeah.
something all the
Oh,
time,
yeah.
and I'd had it. And I called Jimmy.
It was
the day I-
edited in Austin.
Yes, you had to deal with what was that desk called? That content desk.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And we could have put Tascosa Sandies.
Yeah.
and they would have.
That's how bad it was. You could have put Tascosa Sandies
They'd have printed
beat Amarillo High Rebels, and they would have not changed the headline.
Well,
That's when I
The
left.
day I left, I called Jimmy actually,
Yep.
and I was like, "Man, I just quit. I didn't." Jimmy found me a job with W Marketing with Wendy Swope, who I love Wendy to death. She probably doesn't like me very much right now. That didn't pan out. It wasn't a fit for me. I didn't fit the job. It was that commercial advertising, which I just was out of my element. Let's be honest, I was out of my element. I didn't really know how to do it, and when I was sitting in there at W Marketing every day, I was like, I don't want. I could still, how there's something left in the tank.
Yeah.
There was something left in the tank, and I knew that I wanted to be happy what I was doing working, and that wasn't it. So I leave W Marketing, and I'm like, I'm just going to start it. I'm just going to start my own sports website. Lance and I talked about this for years. I'm just going to do it. So I got a guy named Ben Jenkins, and I was like, can you build me a website, like off Wix? We spent that entire summer of 2019, building this website. I started writing stories, started doing video, and we launched in August of 2019. And I took the model of what I learned at the Globe News and from TV. I took both models.
Both combos.
But, of course, it's like Jimmy said, it's very internet-driven. So the day-to-day stuff's not there. Like a time schedule's not there. Your day-to-day agit's not there. But it's still stories and it's local representation that we're trying to build, features. And at first I wasn't going to do a lot of game stuff, a lot of day-to-day. But then I realized there was just a need for it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to – you have to keep everything in. But, yeah, and then COVID hit. And I'm like, oh, gosh, like now there are no sports. Luckily, we've been able to survive. But, yeah, because it just comes back down to adapting. And you have to always adapt and get better. You always have to grow and get better. Even at our age, your age, you want to always learn.
Old.
I am. Yeah, even if you're 44,
no,
84.
No, us. 84,
yeah. You always want to get better in life, and you want to continue to grow and learn more because you never stop learning on this earth while you're here.
Yeah.
And you're only here for a limited time. And yes, that's cliche sounding, but at the same time, I'm never satisfied with doing the same thing over and over. I want to make sure we're doing the best work we possibly can. And these Texas Panhandle people are so passionate about sports, they deserve it. And that's a true statement. They deserve it.
Yeah, no. And
absolutely.
you do a great job, and you're tapped in not only Amarillo, but the area you know so well.
Yeah, that's one thing. Growing up here, and Lance, that's why I'm so amazed how well you know it not growing up here. Jimmy and I grew up here. We know this area like I know every road in the Texas Panhandle. I could tell you players from the, coaches from the 90s that because that's my era. But it was just knowing the area. And I think once the people knew you were a Panhandle boy, they immediately kind of take you in. And then it was about getting friendships with coaches, and then it was about getting friendships with players. And not only just trust, but being real friends. I mean, you call Greg Profit in Wellington and have a 30-minute conversation.
Yeah.
You guys, yeah. Jimmy's great at that with the coaches at WT. That's one thing I've always respected about Jimmy.
Yeah.
Well, it's, I'm going to lay this on the line. If there wasn't a thing called money, look around and see what people are doing that makes them happy. And money's typically not the object in that case.
I've never made a dime.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're doing what they love because that's what they love doing. And money is not the real. It's money changes everything. And in this day and time, it's as an employer, it's hard to keep people sometimes because boy, they're looking for the next best thing. We've been very lucky here. But I've got, look at businesses around town that can't keep employees.
It's hard.
It's really hard. And then you got people that don't want to work. And then you got people just only want to work from home. And a lot of those jobs don't pan out in certain companies. And so this day and time is very different. But the people that are happiest, and Kale's being one of those, I'd like to think I'm one of those too, they're doing what they love doing, and it makes a difference in the end product of what it is you're doing.
Let me piggyback.
And I've got a whole staff that falls into that category.
Your staff has always been a great staff. They've always been great. Well, let me tell you, this is to piggyback off your point. This is to Lance. This is to me. This is to Lee Passmore. Those last two years at the Globe News, I've never seen three guys that were grinding, that loved their job, but were miserable at the same time. And that was sad because all three of us are great friends, but we were even snap on each other every once in a while because
when no one else cares.
No one else cared, but you were the one.
And they didn't want your input.
And we had the history of what that paper was about, so we had to challenge ourselves to try to duplicate what was coming out. And with three guys, you just couldn't do it.
You couldn't.
So that's where Kale and I, specifically, our frustration came from. And then was the product.
And now where I'm getting at though, is now you look at Lance, Lee, and I today, which is 5 years removed from the Globe News, 6 for you.
Yeah, is
you don't hear one guy complain about what they do.
Never.
Sports wise, I don't complain about one thing I do because I'm running Press Pass the way I want it to go. Yeah. This is how I always envisioned it. This is how I would like to see sports done. Now, is it perfect? No. But, I mean, I'm trying. And I took a lot of what I learned from Lance and Lee Passmore, and who is just a fantastic writer.
Yeah,
doesn't get enough credit for what he does. But Lee even looks 10 years younger from when he left the Globe News. He was. But, again, it's just about being happy in what you're doing, what you were saying.
When Lee and Kale and I get together, it's not a
poor mean deal.
No, and it's not a complaint session.
Yep.
I'm putting that nicely,
But it used to
without
be.
using the B word. It used to be a constant one. Kale and I went to a state track meet once,
man.
Jimmy. You will find this very interesting.
Oh, my goodness.
Where it's kind of your time when you see all these riders from all over the state.
It's cool.
Used to be one of the best times. It was probably 3 years before I left.
It was
Kale.
2016, yeah.
Yeah. We walked into that press box, and everybody was complaining how bad their job was.
We thought we had it bad until we talked to 2 or 3 sports
and
guys.
it got old, though.
It got way old, yeah.
We had to get out of the press box and write like under a tent there because it was so much complaining going on. So that's what happened. But, Kale, let's get back to you real quick.
But again, it becomes, in this last thing, real
Yeah.
quick, it comes down to it's because you're passionate about
Yes,
sports and you care,
100%.
but you're working for a corporation that could care less about you.
Yeah,
That's what it came down to.
and in pride in your product, not pride like
Right.
walking out saying, "Hey, we're the best."
You
know?
had no ownership in the mission of what you were doing.
Thank you.
That's very well.
Thank you.
Kale, when you look back, this is going to be a tough one for you. What is the greatest game or season you've ever covered?
Oh. Here's the greatest game. Canadian, I could tell you exactly the game, and they lost it. Canadian Newton, 2018 state championship game 3A Division II. David versus Goliath. Canadian had no business. I was Casey Cavalier. Grant McCook was on that team. Bill Ketting, Jack Ketting were on that team. So that was the game I've never been prouder to say I was from Canadian. They, 40-point underdogs. Newton went 6'5", 250, 60, or 280 on the line. They had, who was that running back? Barlow. That Barlow kid at running back.
Amazing.
I'm talking to Tony Cavalier from Emerald High on the sideline. He's like, Emerald High can't even play with these guys because the size. And Canadian goes out there and gets hit in the mouth right off the bat at 7-0. It's 21-0 at halftime. They look dead in the water. And then Jack Ketting right before half just laid the wood on one of those running
Biggest
backs.
hit maybe in
Texas football
Jerry
state.
Jones history,
Jerry Jones.
AT&T Stadium, yeah.
And it swung, and it made him believe, hey, we could play with these guys.
Yeah.
In the second half, Canadian left it all on the field, lost by, a field goal?
Yeah.
But nobody, in the press box especially, because the night before, Groover had gotten beat to Mart, 77-20. So everybody up there was like, this is going to be Canadian Mart 2.0. Groover Mart 2.0. And the Canadian left it all on the field. That's probably one of the prouder moments and prouder games I've covered.
That's cool.
In a loss.
Yeah. It's a great one. And then, of course, Chris Ketting, just covering him alone.
Oh, covering Chris Ketting is always – because if you were to point out who Chris Ketting was, you wouldn't know that's the guy with the 164 wins.
Not even close.
Right.
Not even close. That's what makes it great. So, all right, another football season. How many will this be for you covering?
23.
23. That's a badge of honor.
And straight as a sports guy, it'd be, since I've been in sport, since 09, so that's 15.
Yeah. What are a couple of storylines you're looking forward to that our viewers and listeners today can find out?
Obviously, the two biggest in my view are Stratford and Sunray. And, because right now, Amarillo football is just not where we need it to be. Let's be honest. But Stratford going to D2 with the best player up here in Bryce Braden. Everybody's got their eye on them there. We can already pencil in the game with Albany.
Committed to
Air Force.
So very intelligent young man as well.
We can already pencil that game in with Albany in the semifinal in December. Then I think we look at Sunray because they got the quarterback with Armando Lujan, all the hype, the receivers in Dawson Bennett, Kagan Davis, Ty McDowell. This is that year, right? If this is the year for Sunray, this is it. Now they got a loaded non-district. Then I think the third one, it would be what's Canadian look like?
Yeah, fair enough.
No Cameron Cavalier, no who all they lost so much. Oh, Luke Flowers. So what are they going to look like? So those are my three takeaways. Pretty much.
And Armando, Jimmy has a chance if he throws for like 3,000.
300 and something yards.
Yeah.
300,
You want a trivia question about Sunray, Texas?
I'd love it, yeah.
Who was their first mayor?
Oh, God.
1937.
Ever?
When they incorporated in 1937.
I can't.
A man named Pat Hill. My granddad.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Wow,
My
that's
mother
awesome.
graduated
Wow,
from
that's
Sunray.
Sunray.
High
Their
School.
Man.
first mayor.
First mayor of Sunray, Texas.
Now they
How did he get the name Sunray? Does he?
Don't ask me that.
So it was a sunny
They,
day,
had
and there was
lot of
they were
rays.
not incorporated until
there was
1937.
a ray of sunshine on your grandfather. And he said, "I'm looking."
My
Sunray.
granddad had a drugstore there in Sunray,
Lance, what do you?
Texas.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I,
What do
I
you
will
look-
say this, Lujan, though, and he could become the all-time leader in the history of
Yep.
Texas high school football passing yards.
So you know where I sit at Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame every year. I pass
Yeah.
out the flags.
Yeah,
sit
yeah.
back
Right.
there, and those two kids sat next to each other that got those awards, those two quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Man,
Yeah, yeah.
there weren't much better.
The
You know,
numbers they reeled off.
Lujan is unfortunately is in the era of being a quarterback that's 6 foot tall. And,
Yeah, I know,
and
yeah,
it's sad because he
college-wise.
won't get a look until he graduates. Lance, real quick, I know we're on time, but
Yeah.
what are you looking forward to?
Well, you nailed it in
Right.
my opinion. Those are two major ones. Also, I like to tap in locally.
I do too. Yeah.
I want to see the West Plains Randall football game.
Oh, I can't wait
Okay,
for that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Just as far as a game that's going to take place, that Randall's been waiting 2 years. They've held them apart. You know what I mean? West Plains getting called up. All this done an amazing job with Adam Cummings. You have Dan Sherwood, the quiet man himself.
Hey, Kale, how are you?
With the great voice.
Hey, Jim.
But that's one thing I'm looking at, how that unfolds in there. And then, I always root for Amarillo ISD, but Kale nailed it. We need some energy in that thing. We need something to
It needs to pop. I think Paladuro is a sneaky team
– I like
to really keep an eye on. And I'm excited to see what, Tascosa and Emerald High, and can Caprock improve?
Also, just look at all the quarterbacks. You can go to,
Oh.
like under the radar, Boatman over at Randall. I mean, Panhandle.
You talk about Broxton Robinson.
Broxton Robinson, sorry.
Then you got
Broxton.
Kason Bennett at Randall, and you
Yeah.
got Reed Macon, obviously.
Reed Macon, West Plains.
This is a stacked crop of quarterbacks
Yeah.
we have up here.
It's gonna be a lot of
good.
fun,
How about
so.
Cooper Schilling at Perryton?
Yeah.
Excited to see what he does.
Yeah, and that's going to be another. I think eyes will be on Perryton, all that went down there.
Nathan Martin is at Muleshoe. Golly, there's so many.
and then you got volleyball starting too.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
You got,
we
you
can't
got the
leave that
shake
out.
up. You got new coaches at Emerald High and Randall, and
Yes. And then, I think Amarillo High and Lubbock Cooper, where Mike Moffitt is, play each other way early.
way early.
Way early, yeah.
Yeah,
And then you got the Lady Buffs volleyball team, who,
we had Coach Harry on.
yeah,
last
she was
week.
awesome. I
She
saw
was
this interview.
great.
Yeah,
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 she was
looking forward
awesome.
to that, and it's fall sports. This is a true story. So we'll drop this podcast on August 6th. Today is August 1st, and I'm not lying. When I got in the truck this morning, I looked at my calendar. It said August 1st. I go, football's back.
It is.
And I'm a football guy.
It
and
is.
So I love watching football, but I thought, we'll be having volleyball matches here pretty quick.
Oh, next week.
Yeah, and so
Or 2 weeks, sorry.
this is my favorite time of year from high school sports, and here it is.
Yeah,
It's
you know,
August
it's-
1st. We'll drop this on August 6th, and we'll be knee deep in it by then.
Yeah, and you can get a lot of information at Press Pass Sports. That's what Kale does. You see the passion, you see the knowledge, you just see the joy that he has for his job. And
That's true. There is joy, man. That's the thing. I'm 44, and it still feels like I'm 24 when it comes to covering.
Now he's just
covering
bragging
stuff.
about being
Yeah,
44.
I'm bragging, yeah. And I want to say this. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
May I
yeah.
say one more
Go
thing?
right ahead.
The older we get in life, I think the one thing that's always important to do is give back. And when I mean give, there's a lot of different ways that kids can give back so much. Lance, you give back in ways, but I've always thought my way to give back is teach and trying to help young people, because when I was younger, there wasn't a lot of people that would, especially out of high school, there wasn't a lot of people that would help you in this industry. So one thing I always wanted to do is give back, and I want to really say how proud I am of Corin Davis, who is now the weekend reporter at Channel 4, and I've been with Corin since she was in high school, and to watch her grow is one of my proudest accomplishments. I'm like a dad, right? Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I just where she started
No, give it
to where she is, man.
give Kale a lot of credit on that.
I wasn't looking for credit.
No.
but
And people
one thing
will
we
call him
can-
all the time and say, "Hey, can I follow you for a day?"
right.
Come on.
I saw Corin here recently. I had to tell her this story. This is true. So I was running the alumni office at WT, and I was asked to come be the keynote speaker at the Fritz Chamber of Commerce banquet.
Awesome.
You know who the high school
Lori.
student that they honored that year was her mother, Lori. Who
Lori.
came to WT and played basketball. And I told Corin that story here recently. But yeah, Lori DeShields
Yeah.
sat right next to me at that banquet a long time
Lori
ago.
One of the
DeShields can
best.
hoop.
Oh man, yeah, she was awesome.
She
But
can
I just
play.
want to, I think
Yeah.
one thing in this one thing we can always do at
Especially
our
the
age,
way the climate of the world is today.
right.
There's a lot of selfishness out there.
Yeah, and
There's
that's
a lot
one
of
thing you
me,
try
me,
to
me.
teach them is we don't be me, and she's taking that.
She
and,
has.
and when you look at Corn, and one thing we talked about way early was, she's a pretty girl, very beautiful girl. Is you're going to be judged on a completely different level.
Oh, yeah,
and one thing
it's not fair at all.
Yeah, not fair at all, and we taught her a lot about that too.
Yeah, no, that's just that hacks me off whenever I see them judge like that.
She'll
They're
plow
more
through
worried
that.
about what their hair looks like than the knowledge they're giving out.
They're not even listening to the
You know what
knowledge
I mean?
I'm
It's-
So I was
it's
telling,
ridiculous.
I always told Corn, you have to be way more intelligent than I have.
Yeah,
to be.
yeah.
But you're going to go a lot farther places because you look a lot better than me. So
She's got
fair
the
enough.
face made for TV, and we got the face,
face
made for
pod-
radio.
Or
why we're here.
podcast, yeah.
That's why we're here. So, Kale, thanks a lot.
no,
bro.
thank you, man. Appreciate
Really,
it.
really
Yes,
liked it.
thank
That
you.
was good stuff.
This is
man.
awesome. And wait, man. Oh, God, that was actually got water in it.
Yeah, no
I
duh.
thought it was empty.
No duh, man.
I thought it was empty. I don't have my glasses.
There we go.
These are awesome. I am sorry, Maddie, for messing this shot up. These are awesome.
That's going on. You're not getting
I'm
that
so-
edited out at all.
I'm
so
so
just
impressed with this whole thing.
yeah,
I'm
it's
really
been a lot of
serious.
fun. It was Jimmy's idea when he asked me to be on. I was blessed to help him out a little bit. So,
Yeah, this is
Kale,
fun.
you really knocked it out of the park. We knew you would.
Yeah, PressPass.
Thanks for the
news, by
insight,
the way.
man.
PressPass.news. I'm going to throw a plug in there.
Okay,
There you go. Absolutely.
PressPod.news. All right, here we go. Hey, this was the Fieldhouse Podcast. We can't thank you enough for joining us. And I'm serious about that. If you see us out in public and you have somebody you would like us to visit with or ideas for the show, we're all up for it. And like I always say, we'll see you when we see you. This is the Fieldhouse Podcast.